Thank you,
Good.
Anton, for having me. It's an
Yeah.
honor to be conversing with you.
Yes, and good morning to everybody watching on the live stream and watching on replay. We're live in Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. No, in our personal profile page. And this morning we'll be talking about magazine, the Art and Lifestyle magazine. And ano ba nangyari dito? Launching. This sounds crazy. Launching a magazine in the pandemic, and then what happened
Uh,
during
uh,
in art. No, I know a lot of people invested on art, but we'll get insider discussion on what really happened with Philippine art scene. My name is Anton Diaz, founder of Our Awesome Planet. We're awesome live with the Cid Reyes, publisher of the Art and Lifestyle magazine. Can you do a short English? All right. Good morning, Sid. So maybe to kick off our discussion, let's do to introduce you to our audience. Maybe you can give us a brief background about your colorful history. You're one of those people who are multi-talented, and maybe give us a short summary of that. Yeah.
okay, well, I'm Sid Reyes, and I've had, from where I stand now, I'm very much a senior citizen. But, in effect, our audience largely would be the millennials. And, if I may humbly say, I've been around the art scene for quite a bit of a time. Uh, I was,
Like
when
what?
I was,
Five
I'm
decades,
sorry.
ba? 5 decades or
Yes, about 5 decades. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Because when I was in my early 20s, just outside of my having left my teens, I was already uh, interviewing artists. So I
Wow.
in college I had a background as a writer. I was editor in chief of the De La Salle University. It was a college then, not yet a university. I was editor in chief of the literary magazine called Horizons, and so that background in writing was was a good discipline for me when I felt that you know I I needed to write about art. And however, a writer may have the skills for writing, but
Yes.
when he wants to write about art, he needs a really solid background in art history. Otherwise, the writer, and I guess this is a kind of an advice to the young writers of today. Uh, you know, Filipinos are very good in English.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's hardly a borrowed language. It's almost natural as speaking in Filipino. But many of them are sort of frustrated when they are assigned to write about art. Uh, they're very good journalists, and unfortunately, or while the article is good, the uh, the write-up features the artist mainly as a personality, and the writing on the art is left, well, shall we say, insufficient. And I was aware of that pitfall for myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I did not finish in Manila. I took up
Mm-hmm.
social history in De La Salle, although with a personal inclination towards literature and writing. And then this was just the launch of martial law in the early 70s.
Okay.
And I was fortunate in gaining a scholarship to Italy, to Rome,
Wow.
uh, as
That
a
early.
paint, yes, as a painting student. And I thought, oh, this is fantastic because, you were not born during martial law, Anton.
Yes.
uh, there was what you call a travel ban.
Okay. O, so
Filipinos cannot,
paano?
yeah, Filipinos cannot leave the country unless for a very good reason. Because it was a very politically unstable situation, and so I was able to leave based on the uh, letter from the Italian embassy.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Italian government that gave me the scholarship to study painting in Rome, in Italy. So I studied at the what they call the Accademia di Belle Arti. Well,
Mhm.
in simple English, it translates to Simple Academy of Fine Arts. And then when I finished my scholarship, it was still martial law. And I thought, oh, if I return to the Philippines, I would be trapped again because I felt not politically, but I felt trapped culturally,
Mhm.
intellectually. I needed to learn. I was very young. I was in my by then late 20s, which is
Mhm.
really the age of my children now. And I thought, oh, I think I'd better go to England. So I went to London, took the train, crossed
Uh-huh.
the through Switzerland and France, and then crossed the Channel, and I took up art history in London. In Italy, of course, there was an abundance of books, but they were all in Italian. And while my knowledge of Italian was really quite basic,
Mhm.
uh, obviously we are more at home with the English books. And in London, I took up art history. Uh, it was not a degree course. You were allowed to pick the subjects that interested us. And but I felt that I needed to learn. I was really a voracious reader, and I felt I needed to learn as much as I can. So I handpicked subjects from the Renaissance to Oriental art to Greek art to Egyptian art to
Wow.
Japanese. So it was really like educating oneself. The discipline comes from oneself. And after 4 years, that's a long time.
Mhm.
Uh, I felt, well, some family matters that
Mhm.
I needed to go back home because my other siblings were also wanting to go to the U.S. And with Filipino families, I had to go back home to stay with the mother. And then when I arrived, fortunately, providentially, there was an AAP competition. AAP,
Mhm.
as you know, stands for Art Association of the Philippines, and there was an exhibition, and there was an accompanying art writing competition. So I
Mhm.
thought, oh, maybe I could try, and so I joined the competition, and you know, um, fortunately, I won the grand prize in
Wow.
in the writing competition. So, uh, well, I thought, oh, there's something that I could do, and then the chairman of the competition, the late Leo Benessa,
Mhm.
said, "You're winning a prize is not the ending of your career. You're just starting." So I remember that, because some people, like artists, when they win a prize, they think, "Oh, I have reached the peak of my achievement,"
Oo.
and then
Yeah.
they stop painting or they start deteriorating. But when Mr. Benessa, whom I respected, said, "This is the start of your writing career," and
Uh-huh.
I looked around at the landscape. It was a very small art scene, uh, and then I started to interview artists. The provocation came from the late Manny Duldulao, who
Okay.
was the first to publish a coffee table art, huh? Not a
Mhm.
brochure. This was a landmark in Philippine art, in Philippine publishing, actually, because
Wow.
this really the market
Anong
was
year 'yan?
1970. 374,
Oh,
72,
okay.
thereabouts. Yeah,
Thereabout. Okay.
yeah. So, and I was writing for it was Marshall. I was writing for the Times Journal. My editor, lifestyle editor, was the beloved Julie Abdaza.
Wow.
I hope the name sounds familiar to you,
Mhm. Of course. Yeah.
Julie Abdaza. And she asked me to contribute, and then Miss Julie said, "Why don't you interview Mr. Manny Dudulao? He just came up with a coffee table book." And
Oo.
so I went to Mr. Dudulao, and I had a long afternoon chat with him. And at the end of the interview,
Mhm.
late afternoon, as in early evening, Mr. Dudulao told me, "Hey Sid, uh, you ask very good questions, and why don't you continue interviewing other artists? And at that time, of course, I was my what you call a bread and butter profession, which was advertising.
Oo.
Uh, One instance, I had the chance to be sent to Davao,
Okay.
the famous place now,
Oo.
uh, and by chance, I there was no cell phone at that time,
Oo, in Davao, nice eh.
and I knew that Professor Edades, Victoria Edades, the founder of the UST Fine Arts,
Okay.
had retired to Davao. Uh, and I did not know how to look for him. I did not know him. He didn't know me. It was a small town. I just talked to the tricycle driver. I said, "Kilala po ba ninyo si Professor Edades?" And I get it was part of my destiny. The tricycle driver was knowledgeable and he said, "Ay, opo, dadaling ko po kayo doon." And so I knocked on the door of the revered Dean uh, Edades, and I said, Sir, I'm so sorry. I have no appointment with you, but I am Sid Reyes from Manila, and I will be happy if you can spare a few minutes with me." Siyempre, dala-dala ko yung aking tape recorder.
Oh, lalaki
Yan
pa.
na. Ang laki-laki pa, hindi ba?
Oo.
May dala-dala pa ako mga empty cassette na for you, just in case pagbigyan ako ng interview. And Professor Edades was an ideal subject, an interview for an interview. He was a great interviewee. Not surprisingly, because he was a professor. So
Mhm.
we had a very productive interview that lasted, my goodness, all the way down to almost midnight.
Talaga? Wow.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
his wife was there.
fantastic.
The wife is the legendary professor of English grammar by the name of Miss Jean Edades. This is history for you, Anton.
Mhm. Oo nga, no.
Uh,
It's quite interesting. I guess for everybody
yeah,
watching also go.
yes, because and Professor Edades and Miss Jean Edades had a column in the Manila Times called "What's Your English?" Meaning it was teaching the Filipinos how to use English grammar correctly. So I guess we were still at that stage. Well, anyway, so Professor Rizal said, "Please come back tomorrow night. I still have many things to tell you." So I went back the next night, and again we had a long interview. That interview with the Dades, and of course with Duldula, became the foundation of a book which I eventually wrote.
Mhm.
Uh, it's called Conversations on Philippine Art. Um, Eventually, it was published by the Cultural Center of the Philippines. Some years later, the book has its own history.
Mhm.
And if I may say humbly, it is a landmark book of interviews from A to Z, as in I interviewed Lee Aguinaldo down to Fernando Zobel.
Wow.
So I mean, in between that, I had an interview with Mr. Manansala, Mr. H.R. Ocampo, Mr. Cecil
Mhm.
Legaspi, Miss Anita Magsaysayho, Mr. Hoya, BenCab,
So everybody almost.
all the great masters of today. At that time when I was talking to them, they were not national artists then. Wala pang concept ng national
Oo,
artist.
kailan ba nag-start ang ano, parang Philippine art appreciation or
Well, to her credit, the First Lady Imelda Marcos, who was really, truly a patroness of the arts,
arts?
uh, she encouraged artists and she gave support and she had many projects. Of course, as you all know,
Mhm.
she created the Cultural Center of the Philippines.
Philippine.
You know, and then upon the death of uh, the painter Fernando Amorsolo, upon his death, um, they had a brainstorm and they came up with a great idea of honoring the late departed Amorsolo with the title National Artist.
So that's
And
when it started. Okay.
yes, that's when it started. And then tuloy-tuloy na after that, and some others were given the award even posthumously.
Mm,
So and
okay.
after that, I started, to write for the newspapers, and I was full time in advertising, so I was trying to combine the two activities. Eh, And for the young ones, really, it's just a matter of time management. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and doing something that if you like to do, you will find time. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
like to do, you will come up with excuses. As we say in our expression, kung gustong gawin, maraming paraan. Kung ayaw
Right.
gawin, maraming dahilan.
Oo.
So,
How did you get into your art naman? How did you get into that?
well,
Because
because
that's
I had a scholarship to Italy. I was exposed to in effect classical painting and traditional painting. Uh, and we had live classes. We had there were nude models in the class.
Mhm.
Typical fine arts classes na
Mhm.
meron mga still lifes, yung mga objects sa table, kokopyahin ninyo yan.
Oo.
Traditional things with fine arts students. And that's how it started. Actually, I wanted to, my background has always been, or my interest has always been more on the modern. I wanted to go to New York, where, I was really very, very interested in the works of the abstract expressionists,
Oo.
Jackson Pollock, William de Kooning, Mark Rothko. But
Mhm.
I guess, in retrospect, uh, God is a timetable for all of us. He,
Mhm.
he, he made sure that I had, that he gave me a good classical conservative training as a foundation. And from
Okay.
there, you can fly, and then,
Plan. Okay.
as we say, do your own thing.
Okay. All right. Now, I actually have a lot of questions, but let's
Go
start with
ahead.
the magazine.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, when all the pandemic is going digital, you guys were thinking about launching when I remember during at the start of the pandemic, all the magazines are closing down, and then you guys are thinking about it. So, what's the story of the art and lifestyle magazine?
Even before the pandemic, which no one expected, um, I was already in conversation with a friend of mine. Her name is Miss April uh, Manuud, Valyarta Manuud, and she was editing a lifestyle magazine based on home ideas and design. And she was editor in chief of that magazine for a good 10 years over or something. And then later on, my wife said, Mary Ann said, "Why don't you and Sid get together and do something together?" Uh, and that's how the idea of art and lifestyle evolved. So Miss April, in effect, became my managing partner and editor in chief because her background is in lifestyle and mine is obviously art. So, and then the magazine was eventually, after several names, eventually was resolved and christened Art and Lifestyle. From a marketing, advertising, communications point of view, we felt that it captures the right target. As a magazine, it's like Art and Lifestyle puts art into life. So, and uh, and I think it's perfect because art, whether visual arts, the music, cinema, literature, uh, is part of the civilizing factor in every Filipino. And now with the art scene really bursting, uh, with excitement, our art
Oh,
scene is one of the most dynamic in Southeast Asia.
yeah.
And
Can
so
you
now,
talk?
yes, go
Can
ahead.
you talk more about that? How did it happen? How did this, the modern Filipino art, how would you call that?
Well, for you to have an idea, I'll give you an idea of how these paintings were priced before, huh? In the 60s and 70s. A painter like Lee Aguinaldo, uh, when he started to price one of his paintings at over 1,000. I repeat, at over 1,000. The art scene, the cultural community was scandalized. I mean, it sounded like an insanely ambitious thing to, to claim that you're charging 1,000 pesos for your painting. And because the paintings then, the Amorsolos were selling for 50 pesos. I mean, that's how
Oh.
the prices were. Can you imagine that 50 pesos is now maybe it's 5 million or 10 million? Even if you put that 50 pesos in the bank, you will not
Oo.
accumulate 5 million or 10 million.
Yan, yes.
And then later on, some years later, I used to watch, as they say, laman ako ng art gallery noon eh.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yung the Luz Gallery, the famous historical gallery of Arturo Luz,
Mhm.
along EDSA. Although the first Luz Gallery was in Ermita, where Robinson's Mall stands now. That area,
Stands na. Okay.
yeah. And then Mr. Luz transferred to EDSA, and I used to attend shows there, almost religiously. And there was a show of the late Ang Kyukok, and his
Mhm.
paintings were priced only at 2 million. Yung 2 million na yon, siguro kung nabili ng collector yon, that's about, my goodness, that's about 15 million, 20 million.
Wow.
Uh, of course, at that time, 2,000 maybe, malaking pera na rin.
Oo.
But you see, kung tinago mo yung pera na yun sa bangko, hindi na ba yun naaabot ng 15 million? So, it's incredible. It's mind blowing. The good thing that has happened to Philippine art, and I give credit. Of course, to the Filipino artists
Oo.
for their talent, and then of course the media, the newspapers, for giving 1 day a week in the newspapers on the arts and the cultural activities of the country. The media kept the interest and informing the public of the activities of the Filipino artists in all the branches of the arts. And then, of course, very recently, or now it's not so recent because may mga 10 years na rin ng mga ang Leon Gallery, ang Salcedo Museum,
Oo.
auction house. So the auction houses, of course, were a main instrument in bolstering the market. And then, of course, the market responded because they saw, they look now at art as more than just some object of appreciation, but really investment pieces. You invest in art, the price uh, really goes up in time. You buy a beautiful, expensive car.
Mhm.
Uh, the moment you drive it out of the showroom, bagsak na ang presyo, right?
Correct.
But
Yes.
with paintings,
And
if you,
gadgets.
yeah, siguro yung art and real estate, I guess, those are
Yeah.
the two good investments. I mean, it sounds mercenary, but
Mhm.
it's reality. All objects have a price.
Mhm.
And whether you like it or not, there will be some pieces of artworks and pieces of real estate that will be most desirable to a particular market. And that is the reason why art now is such a hot investment object, all to the good of the Filipino artists. And you know
Mhm.
how lucky our country is, no? Of course, we have a lot of problems in other areas,
Mhm.
but I think in the arts, in the visual arts, uh, we have been truly blessed by the divine creator. Young generations of Philippine artists keep emerging, and there is so much talent, astonishing talent, that sometimes you wonder where are these kids coming from.
Or where is it coming from? Was there
Yeah.
a turning point ba or wala lang, they were able to show their talents lang siguro, ano?
Yes, of course medyo nag-advance na tayo yung even the parents now are more appreciative
Oo,
or
more appreciative,
of their
yes.
children showing artistic talent. Before, when a young man shows interest in art,
Mhm.
and then sasabihin niya sa tatay niya, "Tay, I want to go into fine arts." Ay, baka palayasin ka ng tatay mo.
Oo.
Kailangan
Oo,
sumunod ka sa tatay mo para pipilitin ka niyang kumuha ng commerce kasi
yes.
everybody was taking commerce then or
Oo.
accounting. Of course, kung medyo may natalino ang bata, sabihin, ay kailangan mag-abogado ka, mag-doktor ka, mag-inhinyero ka. Kasi ang Pilipino family gusto lang meron title.
Yes.
Hindi
Oo.
ba? Si
Pero
architect
Sid,
nandiyan na. Oh,
question.
yeah,
For the magazine itself, kasi
yeah.
it's like a profile feature and the art, no? I think what I appreciate about it is yung mga art eh. Parang the art is here. What's the hope for this magazine? Or how did you design it? Is it for just people appreciating art and Filipino personalities, or what's the objective, especially for future issues?
Okay. First of all, a lot of the credit for the visual beauty, elegance, and class of the magazine, we give credit to our art director, designer, Mr. Dopi Doplon.
Okay.
Mr. Doplon is a pioneering art director and a multi-awarded designer as well. So I give credit to Mr. Doplon for that. And now for the magazine, uh, we also give credit to our editor in chief, Miss April Vallarta Manuot, because she gives it balance, no? She gives
Mm-hmm.
it balance. Uh, it is not purely an art magazine, no?
Okay.
Because again, you sense the market, uh, and you realize that the a greater part of art appreciation comes from the collectors, and the beauty of it is that the private art collectors are themselves mini museums, no?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, unfortunately, the national museums or cannot really contain many of these precious pieces. So most of the best Filipino pieces go into private collection, and now we are, trying to give emphasis to Filipino collectors and or people who are supportive of the arts, leaders in the cultural scene. That is our orientation, and of course, the artists themselves. And like we featured Mr. Ramon Orlina, and
Dirito rin, yeah. Yes.
yes, and of course, again, Mr. Orlina, of course, is already accepted, recognized master in the field of glass sculpture, not
Mm-hmm.
only in our country, for which was then he was the only glass sculptor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but even internationally, Mr. Orlina is widely accepted. For the next issue, we have again, uh, we are featuring the works of, in complete contrast to Mr. Orlina's works, the works of Ram Malyari. Yeah, so that's an example of we give emphasis also on sculptures now, and
No.
as I mentioned, the art collectors. Our cover, as you know, is uh, the businessman MVP or Manuel V. Pangilinan, and you are allowed to feature his art collection. And of course, we are allowed to profile him, as not just a businessman,
Oo.
but as a lover of Filipino art.
Matagal
So,
na ba siya naging supporter, MVP?
yes, matagal nang mahilig sa painting si Mr. Pangilinan, Mr. MVP, and because recently I was asked by the administration or the people that take care of the cultural side of
Mm-hmm.
of PLDT Smart Meralco.
Mm-hmm.
I was commissioned to do the book of the MVP art collection. Yeah,
Wow. So,
yeah,
preview pala yung nandito. It's a preview.
yes, yes, and of course, when we say MVP art collection, we include the PLDT, Smart, Meralco,
All the
Met,
companies, no?
yes, the companies of the great businessman tycoon MVP. And the book, fortunately, again, won a gold trophy in the 2021 Stevie International Business Awards.
Mm.
So we were very grateful for that. It won, I guess, in the corporate communications category, and we got very good comments from the international jury saying that it, it's a breakthrough in the idea of using a country's art as you bring it to the next level, that the
Mm-hmm.
company is not just profit obsessed, you know
Yes.
but a company that uses, in effect, its profit, if you will, to promote the art and culture of the country that brought their business to excellence.
Nice.
So the MVP is a paragon, a great example, and of course there are others
Mm-hmm.
of that sensibility, where you can combine business with an appreciation of the arts of your own country.
Okay.
And of course, uh, we have a tremendous number of artists that to which to whom we would like to give the spotlight, shall we say? So,
Mm-hmm.
we for every issue we identify the artists whom we feel um, uh, not only deserve it, but because many of them already have a name for themselves. But the writing gives the works some kind of depth, and also an interesting angle,
Mm-hmm.
and as we say, hindi ka mauubusan ng ng content,
Ng storya. Oo.
ng istorya, because our country is just so blessed with talent, especially the Filipino artists, so blessed with
Okay.
talent. Yeah.
I have a few more last few questions.
Yes.
First is during the pandemic, I noticed that a lot of people got really into art. Focusing on doing paintings. What really happened during the pandemic in the art scene in the Philippines?
Well, of course, the COVID is really a nightmare. Was and still is, now maybe getting a little better, but it is the enforced social isolation
Mm-hmm.
of the artist, where we cannot go out,
Yes.
and artists are among themselves very social creatures. We like to get together, have a drink, and then you talk shop, or uh, the art, especially during opening nights when the artists get together, it's usually a fun, very brotherly, camaraderie kind of fellowship. And nawala yun because of the pandemic lockdown. Nakakulong na kami sa bahay, sa
Oo.
aming mga studio. And so it's a blessing in disguise. A blessing in disguise that we were forced to confront ourselves. Well, with so many death and devastation happening, we were also faced forced to face our own mortality. Every family has known a death or a relative that has been devastated by the virus. And
Yes.
so that social isolation, I think, I absolutely no doubt, was an instrument in the great production of Filipino artists during the time of that terrible plague. So it's and I during that time we were saying, I think, to go back to your original question, why why create a magazine now at the time of the pandemic? I thought, and Miss April, we said, well, if not now, when? We don't know when the plague of the virus will stop.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we took the first step. The first issue was a little bit difficult, uh, because nobody could go out. And nobody wanted people to go inside their houses, and we had to really do a lot of things ourselves. I had to do most of the writing for the first issue. Uh, but for the succeeding issues, we have tapped very good writers, a
Mm-hmm.
number of them. Uh, and of course, we're featuring other new interesting artists. There is always room for any publication that is devoted to the arts. Uh, I do not see, I do not pose ourselves as a kind of a rival, or because I'm friends with everyone. I'm
Yes.
friends with a lot of people, and I'm very supportive of the arts. Actually, ang slogan ko nga, if I may mention the slogan of
Yes.
uh, ABS-CBN, which is gone, unfortunately. You know, the magazine, or and I also take it as a personal mission. uh, we are in the service of the Filipino artist, and you do whatever you can.
To help.
You do it with, yeah, we do you do it with good intention because you
Yes.
believe in the Filipino.
Okay. Second to the last question. What do you think of digital art, NFTs, and how is the Philippines getting into that space? Or will you even cover that in the magazine?
Yes, one thing I've realized after many years of decades of existence is that uh, these are forces that emerge from a socio-cultural economic scene, and it is useless to even attempt to uh, uh, to control or to prevent the flow of forces that seem inevitable. Kasi
Mm-hmm.
sanay tayo sa comfort zone, hindi ba?
Yes.
Maski naman sa art movement, when the Impressionists came, pinagtatawa na naman gawa nila Claude Monet, ni Mr. Renoir, because they're doing something that is breakthrough, and that the Impressionists felt were reflective of their age. So ganun din dito tayo ngayon,
Uh-huh.
in digital art. May mga tao na ayaw ng digital art kasi sabi nila, ay gusto ko yung painting na meron pa ring nakikita yung oil, etc. But fine, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you
Uh-huh.
can keep your appreciation of that. But for me, learning from history, you cannot stop the flow of progress. It may have some good points, some bad points. Even photography for many years was not accepted as art. Sasabihin
Ah,
nila hindi yan art kasi pinipindot lang din yung camera eh. Hindi ba? So, but now photographs in New York, in Europe, are so expensive because they discover that there is an artist, an eye behind the photograph. Richard Avedon, Irving Penn, uh, all the great French photographers.
uh-huh.
And so now, these are expensive photographs that nagkaroon na ng respeto sa photography. Even before, pagka ang artist gumamit ng photograph as a reference point, galit na ang audience, pagtatawanan yung artist. Bakit ka gumagamit ng photograph? But now everybody uses photograph as a
Yes.
reference.
Oh, oh,
Y- You know, uh, there's
correct.
nothing wrong with that because it is not, as we always say, like Picasso said, it is not the influence, it is what you do with the influence. Because Picasso himself was admittedly accepted openly that he was influenced by African art. Kaya nga naumpisa yung Cubism because of African art.
Mm,
Hindi mo mapipigil ang progress ng thinking. There will be problems along the way, but
mhm.
this is the way life is. We keep on moving. Otherwise, you stagnate. You know,
Uh,
if you stay in your comfort zone, art is always about breaking boundaries.
uh-huh. and
And
and and that's good. I'm learning a lot. Actually, inspired by what you're saying because some senior citizens are close-minded, but
uh,
you are very progressive. Now, final question. I know you've done a lot for the art scene, and you have to pass it on to the next generation also. Any advice for the young people, like for example for me, no, I'm having a hard time getting into art now kasi you don't know where to start, diba? When you go to the galleries now, ang dami na, there's a lot of things. When you go to Shambhala, all the modern Filipino are there, ang daming mga places. So I don't know where to start, and I understand what you're saying about writers don't have the background, but of course, or even your kids, like how do you start their appreciation? Any advice in general for the young generation to really embrace Philippine art?
First of all, I want the young ones, the millennials, to just keep an open eye. Do not be judgmental. Always give consideration that there may be something interesting in what someone else is doing, or in what new device has been invented. Always stay open. Now, as you know, I will quote our friend Juvenal Sanso, it is not, you can be influenced not by an artist but by a culture, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sabi ni Mr. Sanso. In his case, he was influenced by Oriental art. Now, an artist can be influenced by another medium. Now, digital art, for example, or what you just mentioned, the NFT.
And NFTs, yeah,
Yeah,
non-fungible tokens. Yeah.
yeah. Now, parang, hey, what's that? I mean, everybody's in the dark, but there's a group of people are excited about it. Let's be open to it. You don't know where it will lead to. Because art is always, to repeat, breaking boundaries and opening the frontiers of the human imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, if technology comes into the picture, so much the better, because technology has changed the way art is being produced. You have Andy Warhol, of course, everybody knows Warhol. Uh, and Robert Rauschenberg started to use the photographic silk screen. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's no hand painted thing there except for the background and some touches of abstract expressionist brushstrokes. But otherwise, people will say, ano ba yan? Mechanical yan, pinagawa lang sa silk screen maker. But, as history has already proven, Warhol and Rauschenberg were doing those silk screen works way back in the 60s. Now we're in the, second decade of the 21st century, and those guys have their own museums and foundations. And now, digital art, sasabihin nila, ano ba yan? Computer ang gumagawa. It doesn't matter. Now, for example, the art production has changed with the practice of people like Jeff Koons, Damien Hirst, Takashi Murakami, where they have assistants. Jeff Koons, who is
Oh,
the highest priced painting, has a factory, a studio, if you want to call it, employing over 100 assistants. So same thing with the Murakami. As long as the work is the vision, the idea, or you might say the design of the artist, uh, i- you know, if he needs an assistant, several assistants to execute his vision, hayaan mo. Then when the artwork is eventually produced, it exists with its own integrity as a vision of a particular artist, then it deserves all the respect. So, maraming boundaries na ang nabe-break natin, no? Anything that resists, that invites resistance, is something that you must always receive with open arms and with open eyes. So wag tayong nakapikit ng mata, ayoko niyan, you can have preferences, no problem. But let others enjoy what from things, objects that they derive some pleasure from. So yun ang advice ko sa mga bata. And also, be passionate, be dedicated to your vision. Madali kasi magsawa ngayon ng tao eh, yung mga bata, hindi ba?
oh,
Paiba-iba ng interest. If you are really interested in painting, of course it's not a surefire passport to fame, fortune. Uh, I remember sila sila Mrs. Luz, sila Arturo Luz of the Luz Gallery. They were saying, "Ay, nako, you think you're going to get rich from painting? Ano ka na lang, mag-insurance salesman ka na lang or magbenta ka na lang ng memorial plan." Because there's no assurance. But if you're dedicated to your art, you support your art, uh, you have a day job, as we call it, and then if your passion is for painting or photography, go ahead and do it, or writing screenplays or composing.
mm-hmm.
Kailangan you pursue your own passion, your own vision. Of course, make sure that you're able to bring food to the table, especially if you have a family. But yung passion mo ang bumubuhay sa kaluluwa mo eh. You know, uh, even if now that you're doing it, nobody's appreciating your work, or in fact pinagtatawanan ka,
Oo.
you know, sasabihin ang lakas ng loob mo ha, it's enough to discourage a young one. uh, you know, pag gusto magpainting ng bata, sasabihin, ano akala mo magiging national artist ka? You receive a lot of discouragement sometimes outright insult. But you say, no, I do my thing. Do your own thing.
All
Uh,
right.
it's really it's a great principle in life.
Oo,
Yeah,
galing.
the way the
Very
way you're
inspiring.
doing now.
Oo nga. No, very inspiring, Sid. And thank you for pushing this whole industry. Ang galing ah. You've covered
Th-
it for yeah.
Thank you, Anton, for giving me the chance to talk to your audience. You are a great influencer, if I may say so.
Thank you.
You have your own following, and you are, in a way, through your medium, you are shaping this generation of Filipino youth. This kind of meeting that we're having now was unthinkable during my time. You know, but now we can enter into each other's personal space
Yes.
and communicate as if you're just in front of me. and
Oo.
and isn't that wonderful?
It is.
uh and you're doing a great thing because your medium now is also something that people may resist, or even question, or even cast doubts, about.
Yeah.
But you stick to your vision. Your conscience is clear. You're doing the right thing. You're doing this to help other people, and to
Mhm.
help to execute your vision of communication. You're doing a great, fantastic job as an influencer to your audience.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Sid. And I must say also that we have this show now, Awesome Seniors. And you're one of those awesome seniors who've like transcended into the digital realm. And in fact, what's trending these days are senior influencers. So that's good, and we need more, so that we can embrace the generations. We appreciate
Yes.
you guys have
Yeah.
5 decades of
Yeah.
experience until the pandemic,
We
and
we
we
have to
need
help.
more
Yeah.
stories. We need like our generation wants those stories. So fascinated with just your story, and I'm sure you'll have more stories to tell and more
Thank you,
battles.
Anton. More power to you as well.
Yeah, more power. We're excited to see the next issues of Art and Lifestyle magazine. Where can we get the Art and Lifestyle? Where's the distribution for that?
The distribution, I think the instruction is given in Facebook.
Okay, so
Yeah,
in
just
the website, Art and Lifestyle.
in the website. Yeah, it's just again, it's so hindi nyo na kailangan pumunta pa sa mall at saka sa bookstore.
Oh, yun.
Hindi ba mamamasahe pa kayo.
All right,
Um, just just click it, and then the magazine will arrive at your doorstep.
all right, all right. Maraming salamat. Thank you again. We'll be ending. We'll just play this video of the
Uh,
launch of Art and Lifestyle magazine. Thank you so much, Sid.
Thank
Maraming
you,
salamat.
Anton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you do a short Twitch? Short,